All right, welcome everyone to the first panel of Intersekt 2023. It's a hard spot coming up first. Thank you very much to the panellists for waiting with us as we get ready to start. So this panel is all about opportunities for growth for Australian fintechs in Southeast Asia. And we've got some great international panellists with us today. We've got Shakil Rashid, Head of Partnerships and Communications for the Singapore FinTech Association. We've got Krishna Chandra, straight from Indonesia and wearing a very traditional Indonesian shirt, as I commented on just before. He is the Chief Information Officer at Indonesian Digital Trust leader Privy, and Irene Sang, the founder and CEO of crowdfunding platform Lift Women Group. And moderating the panel today, we have Madeline Ferguson, who leads the FinTech Trade and Investment Program for Austrade. Welcome to you all.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Rachel, and welcome everyone. Really looking forward to the discussion today. Day one, panel one, competing with the Minister. I think it's really starting Intersekt off with a bang. My name is Maddie. I'm the Senior Advisor at Austrade, delivering the Australian Government's FinTech Trade and Investment Program, which is supporting the Australian sector to expand internationally, as well as attracting foreign direct investment back here. As a key partner of FinTech Australia's, we've run a few panels on going global at Intersekt over the years, typically focused on helping companies to understand market entry and key priority markets. We see Australian fintechs focused on three markets in particular: Singapore, the US and the UK. And our role at Austrade is to deliver support to help you expand into these markets. But it is also to promote opportunities in markets that you might not have considered. So this year, our panel is looking at Southeast Asia because the opportunities emerging are enormous. So without further ado, over to our panellists who know this opportunity well. As Rachel aptly introduced, I've got Krishna on my left, Irene and Shakil. So warm welcome to you all. Starting off with you, Krishna. Privy is an Indonesian headquartered company. You're at the forefront of the growth in the market. What are some of your observations about the opportunities for fintech in Indonesia and the region?
Okay. So Indonesia is definitely a huge market for the fintech industry to grow, especially when we are talking about the population. Indonesia population is about 270 million people, where the Java Island is the most populated island. So the population is concentrated into one island. In terms of the internet user, we also have a lot of internet user, accounts for more than 200 million of the internet user, and more of the 167 million people is having a social media. So the people, all of Indonesian people is already have a social media, be it Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, etc. In short, Indonesia is definitely a place for business to grow, especially the government is also supporting us. For example, when we were small on the 2017, the government is really supporting us by giving us a chance to do awareness, to promote a certified digital signature, and also a Central Bank of Indonesia is also really supportive on a fintech business to promote a digital signature and digital identity business.
So I guess sort of in that same lens around the emerging regulatory environment and some of these opportunities it presents. Shakil, Singapore is sort of regulated by one of the most well-known regulators in the world, the Monetary Authority of Singapore. These stable markets, very similar to Australia, are attractive for fintech companies looking at international opportunities because of the stability that it creates. For markets like Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, what are some of the comparison points in the regulatory environment that you're seeing, and some of your observations about what this means for businesses?
I think making comparisons of the regulation frameworks that are in place, especially from Singapore to the smaller, I don't want to say smaller, but still growing regulators, right? Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, for example. Um, yeah, I don't want to make comparisons, but I will say that every time we lead a lot of delegations to these countries as well, from Singapore outbound, and we're blessed to get the opportunity to meet the regulators quite often. One thing I can say is they're always trying to progress. They're always trying to call for feedback from Singapore's side to see how they can grow and better their frameworks as well. So I think that's a key point to take note for anyone looking at those markets as well, right? Even though their standards may not be as great as other countries, they're definitely putting in the effort to achieve that greatness as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Irene, you've got sort of quite a number of years' experience in the region working in heavily regulated environments like insurance and banking. What's your sort of experience of sort of these environments in these markets?
Yeah, so give a bit of background to the audience is before I started Lyft, I had 20 years experience working with the international insurance giant, AIA and Prudential. So I had up their partnership with Global Bank, Citibank, HSBC, Commonwealth Bank. So all of them are highly regulated in markets in Hong Kong and across Asia and also Australia. So my point of view is we as an Asian insurance company, we're always very keen on penetrating into the Southeast Asian market or even the whole APAC market. The reason is they are young, they're vibrant, they're continuously curious, and they're very open for innovations, and they're highly unpenetrated. So that insurance case point that the insurance penetration in APAC is only 5.3%, whereas compared to the US, which is 12%. But they experience phenomenal growth rate, like 3 times more than the US and the matured markets. So that means there are billions of people uninsured, underserved, or haven't been reached yet. So the opportunity is there, and a lot of time people argue that, oh, hey, look, those countries are developing, they don't have good regulatory framework in place to guide and govern your development or entry of the market. But on the other side, what I say is that makes the opportunity appealing. The reason is the growth could be phenomenal because you kind of have kind of like a free open up framework that you can work it on. Especially if the fintech is coming from a mature market like Australia or US, you kind of have something in place already that you can introduce to the market, and even though negotiate and get to know the regulator there and kind of participate in the formulations of the regulations. So I guess it's really important, and I guess from my experiences, when you go into this sort of market that with relatively immature regulatory framework, what you do is we normally have our visions a year or two, at least a year or two ahead. Like we foresee and forecast what's going to happen in the regulatory landscape about our business. And then we put measure there to mitigate the risk. So when it really happens, we kind of be already well prepared. Take Lyft as example. So there are not many regulations around reward crowdfunding at the moment because we aren't seen as an investment platform. But it doesn't mean that the landscape won't change in the future. So what we basically do, same as the insurance giant, is we kind of make sure what the regulator will be concerned, which always is the customer right, are they protected, is the service you provide fair, did you disclose enough risk, all those sort of things. And these things for a platform ourselves, like we can easily implement. Like we put our own standard and regulatory frameworks and document it. So in the future, when regulators come in or when people want to, they actually see you as a market leader and a benchmark. So it's actually a good thing.
Yeah, and sort of on that same trail, just to sort of jump ahead a little bit, and drilling into the Indonesian market. When we were sort of talking and preparing for this panel, you mentioned, Krishna, that there are 200 million people in Indonesia. 50% of people have a bank account and 50% of the population is still unbanked. Whereas in Australia, we have one of the highest levels of sort of banked populations. I guess what opportunity and what sort of does that spark for Australian fintechs or international fintechs looking at Indonesia?
Yeah. So when we take a look on our market, Indonesia market, the first thing that Australian fintech can do is for sure is giving us some guidance on how the Australians business can do better, and giving some advice to us. So because Indonesia is kind of archipelago, so there is a lot of people in the suburbs area. So when we we are doing some kind of product, when we are creating a product, the product have to fit to all of the geographically user, and then after that we also have to use the product easily, because not a lot of people are tech savvy in Indonesia. So what we can do for the Australia FinTech is giving Indonesia market a really good user experience and really good user interface, so all of the people can use the application easily, and yeah, the growth will become significantly if the most of Indonesian people is use your application.
Something else that we were talking about when preparing for this panel, Irene, you asked me, what do Australian companies, what's the sort of most asked question that Australian companies are looking for support with when considering markets? And to really simplify it, it is when to go and how to do it. So I sort of want to flip that around and ask each of you, when is the right time, and what are some of the key considerations when approaching the market? Maybe starting with you, Shaquille.
I honestly don't think there is such a thing as a right time. Right time is whenever you're ready, right? It could be today, it could be tomorrow. But yeah, I think one of the biggest things to take note of when you're exploring different markets and your market expansion is Southeast Asia has a lot of varying cultures, right? From your Thailand to your Vietnam to your Indonesia and so on. One important thing to always remember is the different countries have different cultures that you need to try and adapt to in order to break through that circles, right? So for example, and I'm sure Krishna can add on to this, in Indonesia is quite a tough market to enter as well, because they operate somewhat in a bubble, right? And you need assistance from people within that culture to help you bring you into that bubble. Similarly with things like in Bangkok, how WhatsApp is used around the world, but in Bangkok they prefer Line, right? So it's simple things like this where a person would be more responsive in that country just through a different app, right, as opposed to the one that you're usually used to.
Yes, at some what Shakil said, yeah, he's right that Indonesia people is most commonly in a business where we are most commonly used to have a relationship first rather than business first. So we go grab coffee, go get a lunch or go get a dinner. Then after that we will be talking about business later after we are comfortable within each other.
Yeah, I agree. Like timing is never right. So if you wait for the right moment, you would never start. So I always think like because the market landscape has been too dynamic and the technology evolutions is just incredibly fast. So I guess my advice is like start to lay some groundworks. Don't wait for you to be ready. What kind of groundwork is like you tap into the market, start attending conferences, building your network there. Try to see where you can find talent because people is critical. Like you've got to find someone that's local, understand the market, but also you can trust and know your business. And start to building your tribes, finding your tribes, and also go into the market to feel the vibes by yourself. That's also very important to understand the culture. I think I mentioned to Mehdi one time is I always love to use the peach and coconut analogy. Like the Western culture is like peach, and the West Asian culture is more like coconut. So peach is like soft outside. So the Western people tends to be very welcoming at the first, but it's really hard to get into the inner circle, like because the inside is really hard. But the Asian culture, like Asian people, tends to be like a coconut. So it's really hard outside. They appear to be quite cool and quite not a bit reserved. But once you are in, you are in. There is a phenomenal warmth of hospitality. They have a strong sense of loyalty, and they will stick around. And yeah, but it's the critical thing about cracking into Asian and understanding culture is relationships. So you have to build relationship, which takes time and patience, and really understand. Well, another critical point is understand what's the tools, what's the trend locally. Like what they say is which country use WhatsApp, which country like Korea use Line, all those sort of things, very practical things you also need to understand.
Yeah, very good points. And even when we were talking about how to sort of arrange the panel, and I said, WhatsApp? Is everyone using WhatsApp? Because it's such a big tool of communication here, but understand it's not in others. Also sort of the importance of understanding the market, and Shaquille, you're here in Australia with a delegation from Singapore. What's the importance of using these types of opportunities, of getting a group of companies together and sort of tapping into market education programs for businesses to understand the market?
I think that's one of the more vital things that we organize from SFA. It's essentially just to give our member companies the benefits that they're looking for, right? We have the ability to bridge their gaps for them, introduce them to people, introduce them to banks, or introduce them to government bodies that can help them in their growth, essentially. So it's all about networking, allowing, or let me rephrase that. It is about networking, but for us, it's about providing that bridge to allow these companies to network, to build their brand, build the number of people that they know in that target market, and then they can proceed from there further.
Now, Irene, I guess in a similar strain, Lift Women is sort of running a female entrepreneur program to support sort of female founders enter the region, a number of sort of different markets, including Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and what the opportunities are for female founders in particular?
Yes, so great question. So early this year, we took an exciting move that we launched an entrepreneur program in Indonesia, teaming up with an incredible local FinTech startup, which is SC Ventures portfolio company that we were lucky enough to got introduced through the Singapore FinTech Week last year, like FinTech Festival. So it's a program that supports female entrepreneurs locally with funding and mentorship. So that's what we're very passionate about doing, and also launching a crowdfunding campaign. And that was essential like extension of our Lift Women's flagship program here in Australia, supporting female entrepreneurs. And we take it as like a testing point and team up with incredible local partner that understand the local market. And I can tell you like the result has been phenomenal. The response, the people, they're so engaging, and it's incredible. And there are amazing female entrepreneurs there, and they've been underserved, don't have that spotlight before, so they really appreciate what we're doing. And here today, we're also very excited and incredibly excited to announce our next big move. So we actually, as Mehdi said, we're going to collaborate with Asia Pay, which is an incredible award-winning leading payment company in Asia. So I see the team Matthew here as well. So we got to collaborate together to launch a female entrepreneur program across 5 markets, Australia, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Philippines, and to support female entrepreneurs. So at Asia Pay, as our partner, they generously committed $300,000 to fund 20 women. So, and we're very excited about this opportunity, and we're going to announce more program detail in the future. So that said is, I think for Lift, and also what I'm good at is partnership. I used to be the head of partnership for global banks. So my view is when you want to enter market, another way that you could do it really good, effectively, is finding a good partners that has the network, has the resources, and also believe in what you're doing and share the same vision, and that will make everything easier.
Couldn't agree more. Now, final question to finish off, and what we're sort of keen for each panellist's reflections on something to leave the audience with on a practical tip for doing business in Southeast Asia. Krishna, I'll start with you.
Okay, so a quick win for business to grow in Southeast Asia is trying to get some partner which is already inside the country, who already have a connection, who already have a client, so you can get to integrate with their system, and the partner can also selling those your system to their existing client, and grab a new client with your technology maybe to for you to minimize the gap to enter the Asia market.
Very good point, Irene.
Yeah, I kind of like 3P, like the people, the problem, and so like and also the problem is when you want to go into those markets, you really need to understand what's the problem that they're facing, and there might be different causes for the same universal problem. So you need to dive into it. And the second thing is really important is people, and you need to find your tribes, your networks, and also the talents that you're going to lean onto once you really crack into that market. So the last P is partner, as Christian say, is like you've got to find the right partner to do this together, and that will make your journey more smooth.
Shaquille.
I think everyone here, all three of us will essentially say very similar things, right? People, partners, and essentially that leads to networking and business relationships. For me, it's mainly just trying to, depending on your market, it's really about identifying what organizations can help you the most, right? Most Southeast Asian countries have their own FinTech association, similar to FinTech Australia, who will be able to lend you their expertise, right? Because they have a wide membership base, and they can introduce you to almost everyone that you need. On top of that, if you're looking at the Singapore market, for example, Austrade over here as well will do amazing things for you in connecting you with people in Singapore, and that includes the EDB, Economic Development Board in Singapore, Enterprise Singapore, for example, and they'll also most likely connect you with us, SFA, and that's where your connections start branching out, and this will be within a week.
Wonderful. I think that's a really lovely way to finish, and a good summary that it seems the key is to understand the market, understand the culture, build a strong network, and sort of don't go it alone, look for partners to go in with. So thank you very much. Great to hear from you all, and hopefully spark some thought about the opportunity for growth in Southeast Asia for everyone here. Thank you.
Can I just add, sorry, I completely spaced out, but essentially if you're looking at Singapore, well, not just Singapore, but Southeast Asia as a whole, as a market, take note that Singapore FinTech Festival is coming up as well in November, and that would be a great place to start because you'd be able to meet people from all over the world, essentially. One of the largest FinTech festivals in the world.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists. And we've